Today's episode is brought to you by Dr. Jeffrey Halstead, DMD. Dr. Jeffrey Halstead has been Canandaigua's hometown dentist for more than 35 years, offering routine dental care as well as cosmetic dentistry, implants, and dentures by their highly trained and experienced staff. Visit them online at canandaiguadentistry.com or find them on Facebook and Instagram. For FingerLakes1.com, I'm Josh Durso, and this is FLX Today. This morning, we are continuing our series connecting with candidates for local office across the region. We are joined by Liz Yockel, who is running for Ontario County Clerk. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today about your campaign for County Clerk. Interesting, I think, because a lot of folks don't really think of this as a political race, but at the end of the day, it is a political campaign. So first question is the easy one. Why are you running for Ontario County Clerk?
So there are a lot of reasons that I'm running. First, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to have an opportunity to talk to more people, get the message out some more. And so really why I'm running is because I am on the very western edge of the county. So I'm about half an hour away from the city of Canandaigua, and that is where services are really centered in this county when you need the clerk services or the DMV services. So the county clerk is responsible for not only the county clerk's office, but also the DMV, which is something that people tend to be much more familiar with. But the county clerk's office itself handles property records, notary licenses, court filings. So people do use it on a pretty regular basis. And, if I'm out here and I don't have a car, it makes it really a lot harder to take care of the things that I need. And getting a driver's license, getting a photo ID are pretty critical to just living in our society. So I'm really looking to push services out outside of just the city of Canandaigua, because there are so many people who have a hard time getting there, not just the location, but also hours, days. People have 9-to-5 jobs. It's difficult to get there during regular business hours. But I also believe that our government works better when people have a choice. So this is a seat that has not been contested since the mid-90s. And I thought it was really important to give people a choice on the ballot, because when we don't give people a choice, they tend to become disengaged. People don't show up for elections anymore. And I really want people to have a choice.
And you mentioned something that I think is really important. I want to expand on that a little bit. DMV, obviously, who their clerk is, who their county clerk is. The average person may not have very many strong feelings, but when it comes to the DMV, people have very strong feelings about how that service is executed. With a county like Ontario, it's large, it's spread out. You've got city centers, but then you've also got very rural portions of it as well. What do you think is being missed right now in terms of executing so that everybody is fairly represented across the board, across the entire county when it comes to those essential services like DMV? And what might you like to see change on that front to maybe make it a little better?
So I think when I'm talking to people, there are a lot of people who are actually leaving our county to take care of those services, not just because of location and hours, but just like wait times. So people don't want to go to a DMV where there's a long line. Totally understandable. And I think that if we are setting up in municipal offices, in libraries, just a few days a month, which seems to have had a lot of success in other counties, there's really a great way to reach people where they're at, so that they don't have those lines, so they don't have that travel time. Because, there's this piece about the county clerk and the DMV office that a lot of people don't ever think about it, right? Because it's not in front of us all the time, where when people cross our county line to go to another county to get those services, their dollars are going to that county, right? So any services that they're taking care of over there, those dollars are staying with that county. Whereas if they stay here in Ontario County, the revenues brought in by that office they can go to increase services, they can go to a lot of different projects, they can go to offset property taxes. So it's, much like small businesses, we want to support local, we want to keep things in our towns. Same thing with the clerk's office.
And it seems like that would be really important, given that transportation is a pretty well-known challenge in rural parts of the entire Finger Lakes, not just Ontario County. So you'd be keen to setting up kind of like mobile DMV hours, I guess would be the way I've seen it phrased in other places.
Yeah, and people often think of Monroe County where they have like the big RVs that go out and are a mobile office. That's a lot to take on to begin with. I don't want to push a huge budget item like that, but I really think it seems very accessible to start with a DMV, a clerk employee who goes out into offices where people are already getting services, whether it be a library or a town hall. They need a laptop, they need a printer, and a way to get back and forth. That seems much more doable, not a huge challenge to our budget, and it really helps us to reach more people so that we keep their business.
Achievable. And another kind of carryover point from that, digitizing the clerk's office, that's something that it seems like is high on your priority list. When you think about interlacing more digital services into this, what does that look like? What's that process look like for you?
So there are lots of grants out there to go after that help with the cost of getting files scanned, essentially, because it is a big job. There's a lot of paperwork in both offices and in the county in general. And to have those things be easily accessible really makes life easier for a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people who love genealogy, and it's so much easier, say somebody doesn't live in this state and they want to research property records or something like that in Ontario County. Not everybody can fly in to our local area to do that research. So I think it helps people who are doing that kind of research just for their own information, enjoyment, but it also helps our businesses, right? Because we have lots of business that goes through the clerk's office. So if we're helping people conduct their business without having to come into the office, if things can be digitally time-stamped, I was talking to somebody in my local government who has to, every time somebody subdivides their property, they have to drive into Canandaigua. They have to go to multiple offices to file that paperwork, to get it time-stamped, to make sure everything is filed correctly, and then come back. And that's just one piece of business that they're doing every day. So when you think about all the towns that are trying to conduct that business, times how many subdivisions happen, it adds up to be a lot of time that people are spending just kind of going back and forth when they could just maybe email it or send it in through a system on a web portal.
It sounds like a wild dichotomy given the fact that Ontario County, especially the western side of Ontario County, is exploding in housing growth and every other kind of growth imaginable. Let's take a step back here. You personally, what in your background or in your life experience made you feel like this was the right time to run and you wanted to get involved like this?
I have been on my town board and really enjoyed that experience. I learned a lot doing that. So in 2017, 2018 is when I left the corporate world and came to my business full time. And that was at the very beginning of my term as a town board member. And so I love being involved in local government. I love local committees that I'm on here. I do parks and recreation. We have a community garden that just made the news, which is very exciting. So I wanted to keep doing something like that. And when this opportunity came up, I think that my legal background makes me well suited for this position. So for 7 years, I worked as a legal editor with Thomson Reuters. And so attention to detail is something that I love. I like the minutia of the law. I worked a lot on tax law. Compliance is very interesting to me. I like making sure that we're following all the rules, making sure everything is done on time. And that's a lot of what this job is. It's making sure that reports are filed, that the system is operating as it should. And as a small business owner, customer service is really important to me. My customers don't come back unless they're happy with the experience that they have. So I want people to walk into the DMV and want for it to not be a bad experience. I've always heard that the DMV employees are fantastic. They're friendly. They get the job done. So if we could just work on getting those wait times down and those services more accessible to people that are having a problem, I think that we'd be in really good shape in Ontario County.
What would a successful year one, if you were elected county clerk, what would a successful year one look like on December, say 29th or 30th, before you step away for New Year's? What would that look like in your mind?
I think having in place those a routine schedule where people can access services within their town is really a priority for me. Having clerk office and DMV employees feel like they're working in a supported environment where they have everything they need to do their job. And just making sure that we're efficient and looking forward to how can we listen to people? How can we better serve them? And of course, the financial piece to make sure that we're on the right foot. We're, bringing in enough revenue to support everything that we're doing is really where I'd like to see it.
More opportunities for service in communities across the county. I'm curious, does this might be too early to say, I guess, but do you think it's a feasible thing to think that maybe every town in Ontario County could be served with these quasi-mobile, not mobile, but hours on a monthly basis?
I think it's feasible.
Yeah.
I think it's going to take conversations with municipalities or libraries to talk about what spaces can be used and looking at employee resources. Can we afford to have people out of the office every day working on these around the county? Things like that.
All right. And lastly here, I want to talk a little bit about the advocacy piece because you've touched on it a bit here. It's kind of threaded into all of these different things that you've been talking about. But when it comes to being there for residents, what kind of advocacy do you think residents need out of a county clerk? What does that look like?
So I think it's two directions, right? So I think it's both that I need to be able to listen to people, which is something that I've been doing for a long time. And I want to know what people want and what people need, whether it's a resident who has an unmet need or an employee who has an idea about how we can make things better, because they're on the ground every day. They know, what's working and what is not. These are the people that we need to be listening to make things work better. But then there's also the piece where the county clerk is really the representative at a higher level too. So to go to the state and say, hey, we want to implement a new program, or this isn't working well, to get more resources to help our county. Because, every few years, the contract between the state and the county is renegotiated about what percentage of a DMV transaction does the county keep and what percentage goes to the state. So having an advocate there, I think, is really valuable to people here.
How much of a challenge do you think that part of it would be, given that I'm assuming there may not be a ton of communication between county and state throughout the year, but perhaps there should be more of that from the clerk's office?
Yeah. I'm not sure what the challenge currently looks like because I'm not sure what that communication currently is at, but I think that there's lots of potential. I love to network. I love to work with people. And so I think the more you keep up communications, the easier it is. If you get to build relationships with people, then later on being able to ask them for things, it goes a lot easier. And I'd like to think that our local legislators are at the state level are going to work with us. That's their job and that's our job too.
Certainly is. Liz, where can folks learn more about your campaign?
So I have a website, lizyockel.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram as Liz Yockel for Ontario County Clerk.
Liz, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for taking it today.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
That'll do it for this edition of FLX Today. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this one, check out the show on your favorite podcast platform or subscribe to the FingerLakes1.com YouTube channel. Have a great day, and we will see you next time.